This is an R Media podcast.
For Mum, it was actually the perfect ending. She was with her best friend. She saw La Traviata Opera out on the opera steps on an incredible night. She was dressed to the nines. She'd walked to the red carpet. She'd had an incredible life. And she, as a lot of people who have incredible lives, they're not looking for the downhill slope.
Marie Claire presents You're Gonna Want to Hear This.
Welcome back to You're Gonna Want to Hear This, a Marie Claire podcast. I'm Georgie McCourt, your host. Now, this is part 2 of our chat with Bianca Spender, who was born into one of the country's most recognisable fashion families and grew up with the legendary designer Carla Zampatti as her mother. If you're rejoining us after listening to part 1, welcome back. And if you haven't already listened to part 1, scroll back in your feed and have a listen to that chat first and then join me again here. In part 2, Bianca is going to share how she answers the question, how are you when dealing with grief? But also how 2 separate conversations led to her being diagnosed with skin cancer, not once, but twice. Let's get into it. Now, nearly 2 decades, is it over 2 decades?
My business is 18 years.
18 years. Okay,
and
so
I know
almost
that because my son is 17 years and I fell pregnant with him when I did my first show. And I have no idea, when you're like, really? The first fashion show I ever did, I managed to fall pregnant with my first child? It's crazy. But yes.
18 years. I mean, that is incredible. It's an independent Australian brand. And if you've never founded a fashion brand, no one listening will understand the challenges and how much work and passion and dedication it takes to run an Australian luxury label. I'm interested in how you protect creativity while also carrying all the commercial responsibilities of being both a founder and creative director. How do you manage both?
I mean, I think every season I'm still learning. So, there's no one magic formula. But I do.
Is that how every year feels? Does every year feel I'm still learning so much?
Oh, I'm so humbled. Every season. I mean, there are 4 seasons we do a year. Every season I learn something, whether it be about my craft, about myself, about creativity, about business, about people. I mean, I feel, as I said, I'm never bored. I just don't have a mind that can ever be bored. But I think what's so fascinating about the commerciality and creativity, and the thing that has helped me, and everyone is different. So I have creative days and let's call them business days. And sometimes I'm not lucky enough for it to be a day. It might be a morning. I'll have a creative morning where I'm really going to make this my design focused time. And then I'll have days where I know it's back-to-back meetings, looking at all of the departments, management, da-da-da-da. And then it's okay, that is that kind of time. And I'm a bit, I am the person who doesn't respond to every email in that day, because if I did, I would never find a minute to be creative, because there's always another email in my inbox. I mean, I get, 100 to 200 emails a day. So
when do you feel you're most creative?
It's always 6 p.m. to 2 in the morning. And that's only because everyone's gone, and any email that anyone sends you at 6 p.m., you don't really have to answer. And any WhatsApp message or text or call is not urgent. No one is really urgently. The stores are physically closed. The online dispatch is off. Between those hours, it's okay. So I'll often be I'll call my partner and I'll say, oh, darling, I'm actually on to something. Can I don't know when I'll be home, but I have to get this somewhere. And
how would you describe the Bianca Spender aesthetic?
For me, it's very much this. I talked about freedom and movement, and there's a felt sense in that I'm always trying to imbue an energy into the clothes, and that might sound really I don't know, hippie or weird, but I think that there's an energy I find in beautiful form and in how things move, and your body is like this. I didn't realize that your skin is actually an organ until recently, and that your skin is the largest organ of the body. So we talk about the heart and we talk about the lungs, but actually your skin is the largest organ. And once it is taking, with all its receptors, 1,000 messages every day as to how it makes you feel. And so for me, in terms of like, that's at the core of everything I make. It's really more than an aesthetic, it's how it feels, like how it feels on the body. But there are cues to that. There is drape, there's organic, there's sculptural kind of, it can cocoon you, it can float around you, it can kind of like billow, it can just glide on you. Like, I'm always interested in all of these kind of sensations, almost if you imagine how wind is. And it probably really comes from I love dance. It's like I did ballet for 5 years, and one of the funnest creative projects I did was doing ballets for costumes for Sydney Dance Company, and just always thinking about like how are we capturing movement and air, and I want the clothes to make you dance, and to make you walk through the world differently. And some might make you stand tall, and some might might hold you in, and some might just make you feel held but not constrained. So that's probably the feeling that I'm always looking for in the clothes.
I want to talk about skin, because
skin, yes,
I love
the biggest organ.
The biggest organ, we know that. But you did keep your experience with skin cancer private for a long time, and then for summer 2025, you unveiled your inaugural swimwear collection, and you had your first sun care awareness campaign. Why did it feel like the right moment to talk about it?
It was quite interesting because I actually had the first warning, where the doctor said, I think you need to get this checked out, when my dad was in hospital, and my mum had passed that year, and then my dad ended up passing the year after. So there was a lot of a family story that was going on, I lost 2 parents in about 18 months, and on that journey, I also got skin cancer. So for me, it was scary, but I was also dealing with like a much larger mortality thing. So, I mean, I'm sure as a mother, like, it was the side story, not the main story.
Yes.
And then I actually got skin cancer again a year later in the same spot. And so that was when, then it's like, I've had it, once you kind of go, that's just, like maybe, I was in my 40s. I was like, it feels young, but my dad had lots of skin cancers. I'd always been like fiercely protected from the sun because I just go red, and I'm not like, I like swimming in ocean pools, but I can never sunbake. I feel like the sun is always kind of like picking at me. It's never felt like, yes, the sun, like winter sun is warm, summer sun is harsh. So for me, I was like, but even my kids were like, because I was the one who was like always putting a hat on, covered head to toe, always telling them to put sun cream on, reapplied it every 4 hours. And so there was quite a lot of shock. I was like, well, I always knew I was in that like high risk category, blonde hair, blue eyes, blah, 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 pale skin. But I was like, okay, it happened. So there was not shock like, oh, poor me, but more just, okay, let's just, let's work this out. And then when it came up again, I was like, now I really need to think about this, because this isn't just a one-off. And the second time I got 2 skin cancers. So first time was a BCC, and then the second time was a BCC on my face, and then the second time was a BCC on my face and a squamous cell carcinoma on my leg. And I was like, okay. And they also talk, I went to the doctor and I said, do you have, like people that just keep on coming back? And they were like, yes. And I said, and every year? And they're like, yeah. And I said, and do you have people that like came back a few times and then you don't see come back? And they're like, yes. And I said, and what changes? And they said, they have to change their life and they have to change some of their stresses. And I was like, slap, because, I've always been a person, as a mum, running a business.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like a crazy fitness freak, but I'm healthy and well, and I do exercise and all of that. And I was like, oh, and I'd always physically been able to do the work, and I never thought that the stress of what I do. But, you know, I had lost 2 parents and gone through, you know, it was COVID. So you're running a business through COVID. It was like a really
stressful time.
And, you know, schooling kids at home, you know, there's lots going on. But there was a lot going on for everyone. So you just kind of, I wouldn't say I don't deal with it. I dealt with it, but it was very private. And after, you know, my mum died, I really took some, you know, I did take some space, and I did find it important to be in a private space, because when people would say, how are you? I couldn't answer that question. Like, it was unanswerable. So I ended up saying, like, I could do highlights, lowlights, because I always want to talk about the good, and I can also talk about what, you know, the strength, vulnerability, you know, challenges, wins, but just how are you? It's like, oh,
how do you answer that? And I always think
how to answer that.
It's a funny
and then
question
Dad died
to
as well. But people don't even mean, like, I know I had innocuously asked that question all my life, and then, you know, when big things happen and people ask that question not knowing maybe what's happened, or knowing and trying to ask you a question that they would have asked you on any normal day, and you're like, I actually just can't take that question like any normal day right now. So it took a while to, I suppose, process it. And then it's like everyone's going through lots of stories of grief and change. But when I was launching a swimwear, I was like, okay, I can't be launching something that is actively talking about being in the sun and not talk about this. Because for me, it was about it having like a meaningful narrative and a place. And to deal with it on a more holistic level. So whether it was that we, you know, like we had these big shirts that you could cover yourself, or whether it was that you could get skin checks in our boutiques, or whether it was that I talked about, like, I actually found the cancers myself, but it was only because a friend of mine had had a skin cancer, and she said, oh, can I borrow a top because I need something high because I've got this terrible scar from a cancer. And I said, oh, how did you know it was a skin cancer? And she's like, oh, it just kept on bleeding. And I didn't, you know, and I was like, this is strange. And it's funny because I'd had this, you know, spot on my nose that just kept on intermittently bleeding. And I was like, oh, it's just a pimple that keeps going. And I'm like, I have grey hair and pimples. Don't know how that happened, but it did. And I didn't think anything of it. And that was the thing that made me go. And I went to the doctor, and they barely could see it. And they were like, oh, maybe. And then it was the skin cancer. And then the second time it was the same. So the second time I didn't have a place that bled, but with the squamous cell carcinoma, it was a summer holiday. We were sitting out on the balcony having afternoon tea with my sister-in-law, and we were talking actually about the sun, and then and she was like, oh yeah, I'm, you know, going to be really careful. I had this skin cancer, squamous cell carcinoma. And I said, how did you know? And she's like, oh, it was just this scaly patch on my leg that just kept on, was always dry. And I was like, oh, I have this scaly patch on my leg that's always been dry. And I've been like, that's a bit weird. And just keep on putting cream, but it doesn't go away. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And I went, and it was a skin cancer. So I diagnosed
so from two conversations.
Both. 2 conversations led me to 2 diagnoses of ones that, you know, like they weren't very apparent, and they could be looked over. The other skin cancer on my nose, only because I had had the first one, that I had seen this, like, we're talking like the slightest variation. It was like, she said, oh, it bled, and it was a slightly like scaly texture. It was just a different texture to the other skin. And I had seen this, like literally where the cut was from the previous one, there was this tiny variation in the skin tone. And I went to the doctor, and he was like, well, it's really small. I'm not even sure I can take a biopsy, but I'm going to try. And it was a skin cancer. So with all of that, that's where I was like, I need to talk about it, because I wouldn't have known about what those signs were if other people hadn't had those conversations with me. So this is the perfect way to, to amplify this message and to use, my my platform and my, my gift, I hope, to people is, like beauty but I can give them more than that. I can give them knowledge that hopefully can help them, because these people helped me.
More with Bianca coming up in just a moment. I want to talk about your mother's death because it was so sudden. I mean, I still remember hearing the news, and it was so shocking, and it was also very public. How did you navigate that period? I mean, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like anything. None of us know how we'll navigate those things, or none of us think we can until we're in them. But I feel it was very lucky to have siblings, because we all were in such a place of shock, and there was never disbelief, interestingly. I think we all had talked about how it was like for Mum, it was actually the perfect ending. She loved she was with her best friend. She saw La Traviata Opera out on the opera steps on an incredible night. She was dressed to the nines. She'd walked to the red carpet. She'd had an incredible life. And she, as a lot of people who have incredible lives, they're not looking for the downhill slope. And so we'd always had conversations about, Mum's not going to like the other side of the mountain. And she had as well. And that she had kind of lived such a big and beautiful and full life, and, died literally with her best friend after doing something she loved. As hard as it was for us, we were all like, actually, that if she could literally write it, it was like that would be her perfect way in life. And she, she was working, she was just, everything was still full. And that's how she liked it. So I think, in honesty, that helped. It really helped that we knew she would be at peace with her ending, even if it was shocking for us. It was right for her. So that's a really strange thing to say. And only now that I have some friends who, their parents aren't that well, they're like, oh, I really, I remember you saying that was what she would have wanted. And I remember going, oh, that's kind of, hard to understand. But, it was a gift for her, that life was a gift, and that leaving of that life was also a gift. So we were trying to, it was about her, and it was right for her. So it was really shocking, and it was beautiful. Like, the outpouring from the community was amazing. The stories that we heard about the way that Mum had touched people's lives, we always saw it, but there were so many people that wrote in and talked to us about, like, there was this one woman that when she became CEO, Mum wrote her a letter and said, let's go out for a coffee. Like, whenever women did well and she'd read about it in the paper or anything, she'd write them a letter to congratulate them and ask if they wanted to go for a coffee. I just thought it was just the most beautifully...
That is so beautiful.
I know. It was just such a beautiful gesture of, like, yes, another woman makes it, I'm just going to, like, hold you up. And there were all these beautiful stories that came out. And I felt really quite lucky, because I've thought a lot about how, someone might have something really terrible, like, one of their parents passing, and no one knows. And no one knows who their parent was, and they can't even have a felt conversation about, oh, wasn't it amazing that she did this, or and we had the opposite. Where everyone had this beautiful, like, I would just get pulled aside at all these times, like, and someone would share this beautiful story about Mum with me, or Allegra, and, like, we'd all end up talking to each other going, oh, I heard this story, I heard that story, and people wrote in letters and everything. So the intensity was high, but the beauty and the love and the, like, that it was a good life, and that she had lived it way past its full, like she had just, the cup was so overflowing and that there was so much love and respect and kind of support that people had felt seeing her and the role that she had played and influence. It felt like it was a special story. So that really holds you. That space really
grief,
holds you.
Losing someone, it's a lifelong journey to, grapple with grief, and it comes in waves. What has been your experience with grief? I mean, losing both your parents, that's such a big identity shift as well, sort of living in this world going, both my parents are passed. What has your experience with grief been?
Someone said to me, actually, I think it was only a week or two after Mum passed, they said to me, I have to tell you something about grief. It never leaves. It just visits less frequently and you never know when it's going to visit. And I was, you never know what that advice is until you walk through that journey. And it has just been, it was the most perfect piece of advice because like days where you didn't think about them, sometimes you'd feel guilty at the end, like, have I forgot them? Is there my memory of them fading? Am I not connected enough to them? And then there are other days that it's just a random day and you are just a mess, you just have no idea where it came from. And it's that thing that I noticed that it was like, those intense, days where you're just so connected to like the loss of and just wanting to have that chat, to have that hug, to have whatever that was, or just to hang and have a cup of tea, whatever that was, the intense desire or longing for that is just so palpable. And other days where you just live a normal day, I think that you just, with grief, my learning is that you have to let it happen more than anything. And I would say I was really lucky because of having people that knew what was going on for me, I didn't have to tell people or invite people or, everyone knew our story. So I had lots of people who would just, reach out. And grief is a really beautiful way to connect with people as well. Like there are people I don't know that well, but they've lost their mother around a similar time that I lost my mum. And we got to know each other in a completely different way because it's such a unique, like having a child, birth and death, the two ends of life. It's like a story that you can not imagine until you've walked through it. And I think it just makes you intensely human, and not being able to control whether it's which of those day it is really like humbling, and people really understand it. And I think we're lucky in society now, we're allowed, I don't, like as an Anglo-cultural, I still think we have a lot to learn about grief and talking to our grief or displaying it or feeling vulnerable enough or whatever those elements are. But there is there's a beauty in grief because it is that you're still connected to them. So if you can see it as a gift and you can see it as a connection and you can actually let it happen, then it can fill you as well as, as well as give you heartache. And both those things can be true.
Has it changed your perspective on life? Like, has it changed the way you work or like...
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think some people when, so they're like, oh, okay, well, I can't, waste a minute. My mum could never waste a minute. Like every day was about, well, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to have said yes. I think for me, it wasn't about going, okay, well, I have to do this differently in life. But I think it was about reflecting about elements of courage, like Mum really showed courage. And I think that I'm definitely a person who wants to make sure that I think I don't love making mistakes. No one does, but I probably, whether it's being a perfectionist at times or being an ordered person, you're like looking not make mistakes. And I was like, I'm going to have to make some. I had to be a bit more generous with myself about going, it's okay if I make mistakes, and it's okay. And I can just be a little bit courageous, and I can, I might do this and it might work and it might not work. And I am going to have to be okay with it not working out. I think that idea of, not that life's too short, because it wasn't that, but it was just like seeing how when you can be, when you're really courageous, what you can open yourself up to, but also that you can just be a bit more generous with yourself. So maybe a generosity to the ups and downs, and that I maybe didn't have control over all of the outcomes. You can only, say yes to the opportunities and then try your hardest again. It's just, maybe it helped bring me back to things that I always had thought, but just kind of made them more front of mind, rather than, making all those kind of things that, your core values just as front of mind as possible.
You work incredibly hard, and you obviously have a very strong work ethic, and it sounds your whole family does. But how do you take time for yourself? Because we can't work all the time, and we do need to stop. So what does stopping look like for you?
I'm quite lucky because I don't love technology. So what that means, and I don't love my phone. Like I'm lucky that, like, I know there are some people who are like can't not be attached to their phone. So for me, it's kind of hilarious. If you want to get hold of me on a weekend, you're better texting my partner than me, because
I've got a friend like that.
is like, and people know not to like Instagram, like send me messages on Instagram. I'm like, you can send it as a text to me, but I'm not going to jump onto WhatsApp and Instagram and my email on the weekend. Like if it's anything to do with personal, it's like text or call only. Like when we're on holidays, I really try, and it's like, if you have a problem, like I say on my email, if it's urgent, call me. I'm really not looking at email across this period of time. So trying to set those boundaries for me has been quite natural. And just like I'm always trying to, what's the word? Whether it's like connecting to creativity or nature. And so my weekends are, I'm swimming in the oceans, or I'm going to an art exhibition, or I'm watching music, or I'm going for a bushwalk. So I'm always connecting to the cup that leads to the source of the work that I do. And I really believe you are intrinsically connecting to your source of what will lead to great work. So, I'm the happiest when I've had a day that I've got to have a swim and either go to a gallery or sit down with I love art books and buy them, and I like reading them, what was their journey, how did they come to that
with
form,
2 cups of tea, because before we
and
started
with
recording,
my 2 cups of tea,
you have
and
2 cups of tea.
preferably in dappled winter sun, sitting in either the front room or the garden and listening to some birds. So
the best. And when we talk about swimming, you are talking about swimming in the ocean, and which you do all of winter, which is, I'm in awe.
Oh, well, it's such... I have these things called swimming epiphanies. And I know some people might have it in meditation or running, but for me, we have this joke, my partner and I, because on Saturday, I dream a lot, and I like my work world. I don't know about your dream life, but sometimes I'm like, no, I want the off. I've never managed to control the off button in dreams. So half of my dreams, if there's any little worry at work, it turns into a 7-hour melodrama at night. And I wake up in the morning, I'm like, no, it's a Saturday morning. I don't want to start the day that way. And so I'll have a lovely cup of tea, and then we'll walk down to the beach, and I'll say, if I'm still thinking about it at the end of my laps, then I'd like to talk about it. And I think 99% of the time after I've done my laps, I've come to some, it's more that it's come to some real resolve. And that resolve might be as simple as trust in yourself, trust in life. Or the resolve might be it might be an actual resolve. I've actually had problems, and it's how do I do this and that? And it's you could reach out to that person, or you can find this, or remember you did that, or I'll have a form and it's not resolved, and it's we could pull it, they're micro to macro kind of epiphanies. But it's really fascinating because after that swim, then I've kind of set for the weekend. And that's probably when you say, how do you separate work and life? Like finding something that's a circuit breaker for me. So going for a swim or a bushwalk is like that immersion in nature. It's a circuit breaker because my dream life is not a circuit breaker of it, to kind of to be on a different track. And it's like, okay, now I can be in that world again and not be sitting there and having a cup of tea and all I'm doing is thinking about this thing. So, yeah.
Now, my last question, the name of this podcast is You're Going to Want to Hear This. So what is one message, one message that you would like our listeners, our viewers, to hear?
Knowing the majority of them are women, I would say trust yourself. Yeah.
Do you trust yourself?
Yeah. I like, you spend a lot of time going, but am I right or da-da-da? And it's taken a lot of time. I think, I don't know if it's because we're always thinking about everything on so many different levels. Just trusting yourself and backing yourself. I think, when I've read so many journeys of CEOs and female CEOs and trust in the journey. Like, it's not always a straight journey. And I just think those things will always lead you to a better place. But I don't know. I mean, literally when I'm like going crazy and like I'm creative, my mum's like, you do tortured creative well. She's like, I don't find it torturous. I don't know why it's so hard for you. And I'm like, it's not like that for me. Like I'm always wrestling with it. Yeah, when it's just like this, trust in yourself, trust in life. I don't know. For me, that has always, I don't know. It's just always helped. It's just always helped.
Bianca, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so wonderful to be here.
What an incredible woman. And I'm sure you have now realised why we had to run not one, but 2 episodes with Bianca Spender. I have so much admiration for what she has built and how she has navigated the fashion industry. She is such an iconic, incredible woman. Now, for more stories of style and substance from Marie Claire, make sure to follow You're Going to Want to Hear This on your favourite podcast app. And if you prefer to watch in high def, you can subscribe to Marie Claire's YouTube channel, and that way you will never miss an episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Bye.